I hope that you are having an amazing day wherever you are watching this. I thought I would do a new little thing called Homemaker Chats where I'm just gonna talk about recipes, things that I'm learning, stuff I'm doing. I thought this would be fun, like, I don't know, to do weekly or bi-weekly, and if you guys have found any recipes or tips or things that you've been learning, to put them in the comments below and we can share with each other what everyone's been up to. So the past few weeks have been, you probably noticed we haven't had any videos. We have had quite the July so far. Scott got sick first, and then I ended up getting sick. And then we had a really, really close friend of ours go to be with Jesus. And so it has just been a month. And we both are on the other side of it, but we can still feel, that lingering feeling of just trying to get your immune system all back up. But one thing that I feel really, really helped us during our very sick phase was fire cider. And I first found out about fire cider from Rosemary Gladstar's course, the herbal course that I took. When I purchased it, it came with a binder, and in the binder was this recipe card for how to make fire cider. And basically, fire cider is food that has been soaked in apple cider vinegar for over a month. And so I'll show you my jar that I have. So we always try to have some of this ready to go and on hand. When we got back from South Africa at the end of March, I decided that we needed to make more because I didn't have any more. And I think we got sick after we got back, which was what made me like, oh my gosh, I need to start making some. So there's a bunch of different things. If you just type in like fire cider, there's a bajillion recipes, but basically, you can use whatever you have. So what I had when I made this batch was a lot of onions. So I stuffed the jar with I don't know how many onions, a lot of onions. I had garlic from our garden last year. I put echinacea root in it, turmeric. I did have some dried chilies that I put in it. And if I didn't have dried chilies, I would put chili powder or chili flakes. During the summer, I put jalapenos in it, and if you have horseradish, you can put horseradish in it. I put dandelion leaf in it. Pretty much like any herb that you have, you can put in it. So I put a ton of stuff in it. That's basically it, what I listed off. And then you basically push it down in the jar, and then you fill it all the way up with your organic apple cider vinegar. I get mine from iHERB Standard. They have the best quality at the best price, and we actually get our iHERB order this week, so that video will be coming up soon. I did a pretty big order this time around, so I'll show you that. And so you fill up the jar all the way to the top. This actually wasn't the jar that I use. I have a specific jar that I use every time because I feel like I just can't get that onion smell out of the jar once I use it. So I have a jar and a lid that I keep just for making fire cider. But basically, you fill it all the way up with apple cider vinegar. Make sure that all of the ingredients is below the apple cider vinegar, and then I usually put parchment paper over the lid and then put the cap on. That way the cap doesn't rust. Unless you have a plastic lid, that would work as well. And then you put it in front of a sunny window and you let it sit there for at least 4 weeks. 4 weeks would be the definite minimum. This time around, we haven't been sick, so I've just left it in front of the window until we got sick, and then I filtered it. And then you add as much honey as you like, so whatever you prefer. But this batch has been infusing for 3 months, and it is so powerful. I actually crave it. So I have this little espresso shot glass that I'll just pour this halfway, and then I usually will fill it all the way up with water the rest of the way to dilute it because this one is so strong. And I will take a shot of that a few times a day, and that will really help me. It clears the throat. It it's just so wonderful. So if you've never made fire cider before, I highly recommend it, especially now. If you go ahead and make it now, by the time fall comes and when sickness is really starting to spread, you'll have yours ready, and you can make it in as big of a jar as you'd like. It's not going to go off. It's vinegar. I'm not sure if I said filter it, but you do filter it, and I just filter it. I'll show you what I use. I have this little strainer that's in my teapot, and I put this over a mason jar and just pour it in, and that's basically it. So highly recommend making fire cider. That has been such a blessing for us to have on hand these past few weeks. And it's funny, like even when you're not feeling well, like the garden doesn't stop. So trying to do things even when like your energy is pretty low. My cucumbers have just been growing wild this summer. This is the first year I feel like they've really done well. Last year my fall cucumbers did well, but my spring ones, none of them made it. They all got, powdery mildew. And this year it's been totally fine. So I have been making lots of pickles. I made Prairie Homestead's fermented dill pickles, which are delicious. Mine didn't get as crispy as I like, but I didn't have bay leaves to put in it. So I think if I were to do it again, I would definitely make sure I put some sort of tannin in it to make sure that it stays crispy. And then the pickles that I've been canning we love bread and butter pickles, especially since we try to eat a lot of oysters, and my favorite way to eat oysters is with pickles and cheese, and so might as well have our own homemade pickles. And so I have 20 jars of pickles that I've canned this year. 14 of them are just the regular bread and butter pickles. I think it's called like Grandma's bread and butter pickles. I'll put the link below. And then I did 6 of a spicy bread and butter pickle, which I'm really excited about because when we went to the Wendellberry Center about 2 years ago, they have the most amazing sweet and spicy pickles. And I've kept the jar so that the ingredients, like I knew what the ingredients were. And this recipe I found looked similar to what was on the jar. So I made those as well. I haven't tried them yet, but I did use the jalapenos from our garden for it. So I'll have both of those recipes tagged below. And then our onions are ready. So our onion stems, I didn't know that when the onion stems fall over, that's a sign that you need to pick them. And I was like, why did all of our onions fall over? I thought I did something wrong, or we watered them too much, or we watered them too little. I didn't know what was going on. And then my mom sent me a link for how to harvest onions, and it basically said like when the stems fall over, they're ready. So I was like, oh, perfect. So we harvested all of our onions. So I bought 3 seedling groups of the candy onions and then 1 group of the red onions, and they were about $5 each, so $20 total for all of our onion seedlings from our local nursery. And I planted them the week after Easter. The lady at the nursery was like, Good Friday is when you want to plant them in our area, but I obviously had missed that, so I did it the week after Easter. And this is the first year I've ever gotten an onion harvest. I tried doing them last year, and I definitely planted the seedlings too late. And I've tried for 2 years in a row now trying to grow onions from seed, and I think I'm just going to stop trying that. It hasn't worked for me, and as long as the local nurseries keep providing the seedlings, I think that's just going to be the way that I go. So dug all of those out, even the tiny small ones. I went ahead and dug them out because I'm like, I don't think they're going to grow anymore if the stems have fallen over. And then I rested them on our picnic table. It was a really sunny day, and that was the other thing. It had been really dry, so it was the perfect time to pick the onions, and I knew it wasn't going to rain for the next 2 days, so I wasn't going to have to worry about it raining on my onions while they were sitting out. So I had them spread out on the picnic table so the sun could be on them for, I did a little over 24 hours, and then we moved them to our carport. There's a girl on Instagram, Midwest Roots, I think her name is. I'll put her tag here. She shared how they made like a frame. They used wood and a fence basically and made a frame for hanging their garlic and onions. I just thought it was so cool. And we have fencing. We have fencing from when we had our land. We bought a whole bunch of fencing. And so, but I didn't really want to I didn't really feel like it was necessary to cut the fencing because fencing is really expensive. Now it is. When we bought ours, it probably wasn't. But I was like, instead of cutting it, I'm just gonna, well, Scott was like laying out our wood drying racks, and then we put the fence over the wood drying racks. I'll show you in this picture. And then I just fed the onions through the onion stems through the fencing, and they're just hanging there. And then the ones that were too small, I put our wood buckets down and then a smaller like rabbit cage style fencing over top of that, and rested the small onions on that cage. So far it seems to be working really well. There's plenty of airflow. It's in our carport, so it's in the shade, and it stays pretty cool in there, so it's not super humid. So that's been really cool. This has been exciting. I've never had a good season with onions, so we've been really pumped about that. We'll see how long that they last. And then after 3 weeks, I have this wood trunk in our kitchen, and I'll put them in there, and I think they'll be fine. I think they'll last a while. The candy onions are pungent onions, which means they are made for longer term storage. I don't know about the red onions, but I'm going to try it for both. My friend Miranda Christine, she said she uses red onions for salsa. So once our tomatoes get going, I'm going to be making a lot of salsa, so it'll be perfect to use the red onions for that. So I've been really happy with our onion harvest. And then something I'm super grateful for that I had done last fall was make a ton of bone broth and froze it. I made chicken bone broth and froze it. And when we were sick, it was so nice to be able to just thaw the bone broth. And I made like chicken and rice for us, and I used the bone broth in the rice. And when you're not feeling well, it's so nice to have those things on hand. And then another thing that I had in our freezer was butternut soup. So I made a ton of butternut soup last fall, and I put it in quart-size mason jars and froze that. And I actually used the rest of it while we were sick. And we have a huge butternut growing in our garden, one that just came up by itself. So I am so excited to be making more butternut soup and freezing it, because that is just something so nice to have when you are just not feeling well and don't feel like cooking, and you also don't really want something heavy. So I was so grateful for that. I think when you're not feeling good, it just puts into perspective like all the like things that you're so grateful for that you did when you were feeling well. And so I'm like trying to keep that in mind as I'm like getting better. It's like, okay, what are the things that how can I steward my time to make my future self grateful for how I'm stewarding my time? I wanted to show you guys an auction find that I have. So this was an in-person auction, which we go to in-person auctions like once a week, and then I do some online auctions as well. And the in-person auctions are like hit and miss. Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're not. But this one, when I went up to it, there was this like table, and there was all of these wooden bowls, and I was so excited because I love wooden bowls, and I also know how expensive they go for. And this auction, nobody likes to spend a lot of money, so things usually go for a really good price. And so the first thing that went up for bid was this, and this one lady, she was like, I overheard her say to someone else, I didn't know what this was, but I thought it was cool. I was going to bid on it anyways. But she said that this is a flour or sugar scoop that they would use to like dig out their flour when they were in the containers. And it is in such good condition. Like, it is one solid piece of wood. And so I got this for $15. I was so pumped. It was me and two other ladies that were bidding against it. And I was like, oh, I want this thing. So I've been using it to harvest my herbs, and I love it so much. So I'm definitely keeping this for myself. So then the next group was this whole group together, and I really wanted this whole group, and I got this for $20. I got all three of these. So this little one is adorable. I love the way it looks. It isn't one piece. The handle has definitely been put into this other piece of wood, but it is so cute. I love it so much. So I'm also using this to collect my chamomile flowers. And then this wood bowl, it says tree spirit on the bottom. And then this one's really old. and it's huge. You can like see how big it is to my face. And this one says Munising. And I love this as well. And this is like definitely primitive looking. So I've cleaned them all up and I was so thrilled about that. So that was my fun thrift auction finds that I wanted to share with you. And I don't really feel like I have much other like fun new recipes. I am going to do a video about the grain mill. That is something I'm going to do coming up soon. I'm going to talk about all the things I've been learning with the mill, things that have surprised me about making your own fresh flour, things that nobody talks about that I know of. And so that is going to be something coming up soon because I have been doing a ton of research and looking up all kinds of things about fresh milled flour, and I thought that should be its own separate video. So that will be another video that I have coming up. If you have any tinctures you've been making or things for your home apothecary you've been making or recipes you want to share, food recipes or canning recipes, please leave them below. I think it's so fun to see what other people are doing. That's why I love Instagram, because it's fun to see what other people are making and how they do things. I mean, I would have never thought about making that onion rack had I not seen Midwest Roots page on how they made their onion rack, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. And then being resourceful with the things that you have, like seeing what other people do doesn't mean you have to go out and buy all those exact same things and do that. It means, okay, what do I have access to? What resources do I already have? And how do I use what I have to make things work? That's the blessing of being a homemaker, is we get to be creative in the home and solve problems with resources that we already have. And like, that's what's so cool about thrifting and finding things secondhand. Is like, wow, I got these amazing bowls that are of extreme value. So I think that's really fun. Yeah, I bless you. I bless your homes and your gardens and wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that if you're in the very mere beginnings, that God will lead you and direct your steps, and that you can feel the Holy Spirit with you throughout your day. I think that's what's so amazing about being a homemaker, is we literally get to put our focus on Jesus in everything that we do. Like, we get to set the atmosphere and the tone of our home, and we get to worship Him in our home by what we do and how the things that we're doing and how we're blessing our family with the work of our hands, the fruit of our hands. So I bless you, and I pray that you have an amazing rest of your day.